This video is all about the evolution and classification of repertory. This topic holds a greater value for AIA-PGT students as the year of publication is generally asked in question paper. The need for the repertory was first felt in Dr. Henneman's era. So, the evolution started during the lifetime of Dr. Henneman. Dr. Henneman died in 1873. After his death, a second phase for repertory came, that is, repertories which came after 1843. Later on, some of the regional repertories popped up in late 1800. Then, post-Kentian repertories followed by the modern repertories evolved. The most commonly asked questions are from the highlighted repertories, so kindly go through the data wisely. In 1805, Dr. Henneman published the first repertory for homeopathy, that is Fragmenta de Viribus Medicamentorum Positivis. It has 2 volumes, Pars Prima and Pars Secunda. Later, in 1828, Hartlaub and Trink published repertory in German. In 1832, Bonninghassen's repertory of Antisorics with a preface by Dr. Henneman was the first published repertory. In 1833, Glaser published the first alphabetical pocket repertory in Leipzig. In 1835, Dr. Jars published Symptom Repertory, which had 3 volumes in German language, and later he published a repertory on glands, bones, mucous membranes, ducts, and skin disorders. Repertories which came after 1843. In 1846, Dr. Bonninghassen published Bonninghassen's Therapeutic Pocket Book. In 1848, Dr. Klofer Müller published Systematic Alphabetical Repertory. In 1851, Dr. Bryan also published an alphabetical repertory in New York. In 1890, Dr. Gentry published the Repertory of Concordance in 6 volumes, which had 5,500 pages. In 1896, Dr. Nair published the Repertory to Herring's Guiding Symptoms. Now comes the era of regional repertories. In 1869, Repertory of Diarrhea by Bell was published. In 1873, Repertory of Eyes by Dr. Berridge was published. In 1879, Repertory of Fevers by Dr. H.C. Allen was published. In 1880, Repertory of Hemorrhoids by Dr. Ginsey was published. In 1894, Repertory of Rheumatism by Dr. Pulford was published. In 1895, Repertory of Spasm and Convulsions by Dr. Holcomb was published. In 1896, Repertory of Neuralgias by Dr. Lutze was published. Post-Kentian repertories or the Middle Time repertories. Now questions can be asked in regard of Middle Time repertories. Some of the options will be given and you will be asked which of these are Middle Time repertories. So, the important Middle Time repertories are Boger-Bonninghassen's Characteristics and Repertory, which is commonly known as BBCR. In 1915, Boger also published Repertory with Synoptic Key, and in 1959, Dr. Jugal Kishore published Kishore Card Repertory. Modern repertories. In 1973, Synthetic Repertory by Dr. and Will Clunker was published. In 1993, Synthesis was published by Dr. Frederick Schreons. Thematic Repertory in 1995 was published by Dr. Mrivli. In 1999, the Phoenix Repertory was published, and in 2003, the Repertorium Universale or the Complete Repertory was published by Zandvoort. Classification of repertories. Based on the philosophical ground, Repertories have their own distinctive philosophies. On this basis, they are further classified into two categories. One, that is generals to particulars, and the other one is concept of particulars to generals. In case of general to particulars, generals are given prime importance and then follow characteristic particulars. For example, the Repertory of Homeopathic Materia Medica by Dr. J.T. Kent, the Lippi's Repertory, the Synthetic Repertory, the Kent's Repertorium Generale, the Homeopathic Medical Repertory, Synthesis Repertory, Homeopathy and Child Care, Complete Repertory and Repertorium Universale. On the other hand, the philosophical concept of totality on the concept of particulars to general, they are further classified into two, based on the doctrine of analogy and concomitance. The example is Therapeutic Pocketbook by Dr. Bonninghausen. Based on the complete symptom, concomitants and pathological general, the example is Bonninghausen's Characteristics Repertory, and the Synoptic Keeb of Materia Medica by Dr. Boger. Repertories having no distinctive philosophy. Now they are also known as concordance repertories. These repertories are mostly used for the purpose of reference and not for systematic repertorization. They help us to refer the symptoms without much variation in the language of provers. So, they belong to what is known as Puritan group. For example, the Nair's Repertory to Herring's Guiding Symptoms and the Concordance Repertory of Materia Medica by Dr. Gentry, which are published in 6 volumes. Now there are clinical repertories. These repertories have many clinical rubrics under different symptoms and medicines which are grouped against the name of disease. They are subdivided into two parts, that is, those repertories which are covering the whole body, example the clinical repertory to Dr. Borick's Materia Medica and the clinical repertory by Dr. J.H. Clark. Whereas on the other hand, there is another repertory which deal with disease condition or a part. Example, when we talk about disease condition or the clinical condition, Robert's Rheumatic Medicine and Bell's Diarrhea. On specific parts, if we talk about Barrett's eyes, Morgan's urinary organs, Minton's uterus. Now comes the card repertories. Mostly it consists of punched cards. Example, Kishore Cards Repertory, Field's Card Repertory, P. Shankaran's Card Repertory and Sharma's Card Repertory. There are also mechanically aided repertories. Some of these computer repertories are Cara, Radar, Organon 96, Dolphin and HomePath. Thank you for watching.